Coming up on this week's edition of Trailblazer Weekly, Dixie State teams win a combined 6-1 over the weekend while multiple school records fell, and the weekly awards continue to pour in for the Trailblazers.
Plus, the Tracking Trailblazer segment is back as we chat with former DSU volleyball player and current DSU assistant coach Mackenzie Murphy. We'll also sit down with men's soccer senior Dominic D'Amato.
We've got it all right here on today's show. Trailblazer Weekly starts right now. We are live inside the CEC TV studios on the Community Education Channel, Radio Dixie 91.3 FM, and the Dixie State Athletics YouTube page with another edition of Trailblazer Weekly. I'm Carrick Segmiller, and joining me, as always, is the one, the only, Drayson Ball.
Thanks for having me on, Carrick. Great time of the year. Obviously, the World Series just started, and I know you're a happy camper. Your Red Sox won 8-4 yesterday in the big game. So in Game 1, I'm sure you're pleased with that result.
8-4 win, like you said, 1 down, 3 to go. Thank you, Nunez, for that home run yesterday. Not a big enough lead to be comfortable yet, but hey, during the game yesterday, I text you, and because I was looking for an excuse to talk about my Red Sox in the World Series on the show today. I text you and I gave you a homework assignment. Come up with some sort of connection between Dixie State and the World Series. What did you find?
Yeah, it was a tough one to kind of find one that was not having to do with the Red Sox, but the only one I could find has to do with J.D. Martinez, prominent slugger for the Red Sox in the middle of their lineup. The only player on both rosters is J.D. Martinez from both rosters to play on a Division II college. Excuse me, he's the only player to play for a Division II college, Nova Southeastern. He played for them, and he's the only player on both rosters to play for a D2 college. There was a link I was able to find for the World Series.
Some good digging on his part. The only D2 player that was drafted out of a D2 school, J.D. Martinez. I did a little digging as well because I figured if I asked you to, I better as well. This one a lot closer to home. We know him well. His name hangs on the baseball stadium and his statue is outside of the stadium. Bruce Hurst. It's in Bruce Hurst Field here on the Dixie State campus. He's a St. George native, played 9 seasons for the Red Sox. In the '86 World Series, even that was the Bill Buckner year. He'd won 2 games already. That was the 3rd game that he could have won. Many people say he could have been the MVP of that series. He played basketball here at Dixie College in the offseason in the early parts of his pro baseball career until he eventually graduated from Dixie College. He was the baseball coach here from the 95-96 season, and he is in the Dixie State Hall of Fame. So that's a big connection to both the Red Sox and to the World Series, which, should it go that long, would wrap up on Halloween. That's Game 7 is scheduled on Halloween. That would be a wacky Game 7. Speaking of Halloween, though, we got some special things planned for the show next week. Halloween just happens to fall on Wednesday. Drayson, give us a sneak peek, a preview, if you will, of what we may see on the show next week.
Yeah, we've been excited for this show I think before we even started filming the shows, because we saw on the calendar of looking forward that Halloween was going to fall on a Wednesday, so we got really excited. And so we're going to be dressed up. We're all going to have costumes. Everyone in the studio is going to have costumes. We'll have the whole set kind of geeked out with all kinds of Halloween decorations and stuff like that. And we may even have a few fun things on the show next week as well. So it'll be a fun one, Carrick.
We'll be promoting it over the next couple of days. It's a show we're just starting today's show, and they're already looking forward to next week's show. But it's going to be a fun time. A lot of people here on the crew that are big Halloween people, and we're excited to be able to give out some goodies of our own on Halloween next week. Let's jump right into this week's show. How about a weekend recap of the games? I mentioned Dixie State teams went 6-1 over the weekend. Let's start with men's soccer. After 4 consecutive matches on the road, the men's soccer team returned to Trailblazer Stadium for the first 2 games of a 3-match homestand, and Dixie State earning both victories. A 3-2 win over Colorado State Pueblo on Friday and a 3-1 win over Adams State on Sunday. With that win over Pueblo on Friday, that marked the first time Dixie State, believe it or not, had won consecutive games this season. They get the win Sunday. They're riding a 3-match win streak. But let's talk about that Pueblo game. They jumped out to a 2-0 lead And you've heard soccer coaches say it, soccer players say it, announcers, whatever a lot of soccer people will say this. There's nothing more dangerous in the game than a 2-goal lead. It can evaporate, it gives you a false sense of security. It can evaporate so quickly, and it did, thankfully for Dixie State, in the second overtime period. John Deere Porta gets the game-winning goal, the golden goal, if you will, and then the Trailblazers went on to take care of business on Sunday.
And it was an awesome goal from John Deere Porta, but it is kind of, a little bit, I don't know, unfortunate, you might want to call it, that he even got to that point, because like you said, Trailblazers did have the 2-0 victory, or 2-0 lead going into the second half. But like you mentioned, it's always kind of tough to get those 2-0 leads because, like you mentioned, you do get complacent. And the thing that I was really happy about when they got out of that 2-0 lead is we said on last week's show, they need to go out and make a statement. They need to go out and play well in these last few games of the season, and I was really excited to have them jump out of that 2-0 lead. Obviously, they do get the win in the end with the John Deere Porta goal, which was a tremendous goal, by the way, with about 4 or 5 minutes left to go. So if he doesn't net that goal, you don't get the win. You finish with the tie in that second overtime period. But yeah, a lot of good quality games from the men's soccer team over the weekend. They spread the wealth very well, Carrick. They had 5 different goal scorers between the 2 matches, and that was a really good kind of insight to me to see that they have a very diverse roster, a very capable roster of people that can score the ball and do so on a consistent basis. They finally kind of got into their stride with the wins in the last couple of games, and we saw it here over the weekend with 2 good victories.
Yeah, let's name those names. It's always good to throw out those names and give them some credit. Those 5 goal scorers this weekend: Dresden Quackenbush, Daniel Brubaker, John Deere Porta, Ricky Nunez had 2 goals, and then Dominic D'Amato had a goal and an assist. We'll have him in studio here in just a little while. Those are your goal scorers. Dixie State right now currently 8th in the RMAC standings. Only the top 6 on the men's side qualify for the tournament. We went over this last week. There are more teams in the RMAC that play women's soccer, so the top 8 go in the women's side, but only the top 6 in the men's side. And unfortunately, the way it looks right now, and maybe I'm not computing this right, I don't have a high level of math skill, but if you look at the RMAC table right now, Dixie State sits in 8th with 14 points. I think soccer's all point-based. I mean, there's wins, loss, and ties, but it's all point-based. 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw. Dixie State at 14 points right now, 2 games remaining. If you win both, you're at 20. 2 places above Dixie State in that number 6 spot is MSU Denver. The Roadrunners have 21 points. So I just don't see a way that Dixie State can catch up to them. Probably won't make it into the RMAC tournament this year, but hey, you can finish on a bright note and get back even at the wins and losses in the season, and still plenty to play for. Senior Day coming up on Thursday against Westminster, your in-state rival. Yeah,
and one thing you got to be able to look forward to is you kind of can see, hey, we're not going to make that postseason tournament. One thing we can do is we can prepare for next year now. There's only 4 seniors on this team, Carrick, and so there's a lot of time left for those underclassmen, those freshmen, sophomores, and juniors to be able to get some extra minutes maybe and be able to kind of develop more skills going into next year so you can prepare better for next year. Obviously, like you mentioned, won't qualify for that RMAC tournament this season. But let's stay on the pitch and transition to the women's soccer team as the Trailblazers pushed their win streak to 4 matches. Carrick, they did that in kind of a dominant fashion over the weekend, a combined 7-1 in as far as outscoring their opponents. 2 very, very good quality games and 2 good games from Whitley Johns, who we had on the show to begin the season. She's ending the season in as much of a dominant fashion as she started the season. 4 goals over the weekend, Carrick. She's 2nd place in the RMAC with goals. Get this, leads the RMAC in game-winning goals. So very, very good performance from Whitley Johns and a very good couple of victories for the women's soccer team over the weekend.
Yeah, 5-1 over New Mexico Highlands on Friday. There was 3 goals scored in like the first 10 minutes of that game. Dixie State had 2, New Mexico Highlands had 1. It went on to be a 5-1 final, 2-0 against CSU Pueblo. Whitley Johns scoring 4 goals on that trip, like you mentioned. Dixie State on a roll right now, and there's not really much else you can say because it's kind of the same thing over the last couple of weeks. They're getting hot when it counts. Dixie State winners of their last 4 and 8 of their last 15 right now. And how about Dixie State setting the single season shutout record? I mean, it's not necessarily something that if you scroll up and down the Dixie State women's soccer record book, it might not be in there, but it is truly a record in the sense that that is the most shutout victories in a single season for this Trailblazer women's soccer team. They've won 10 games. 9 of those 10 have been shutout victories. And we mentioned that earlier in the year that, hey, at that point it had only been 5 wins, and now it's up to 9 out of 10 wins have been shutouts. This Dixie State women's soccer team, 6th in the standings right now. The top 8 qualify for the RMAC tournament, and boy, it's interesting. They're number 6. They've got 18 points. Regis sits in 5th at 19 points, and only 3 points separating Dixie State, the 6th place team, and MSU Denver, the 4th place team, with 21 points. If Dixie State wins both games this weekend and gets some help, you could see the Trailblazers vaulted up to that number 4 spot, hosting a quarterfinal game. There's just a lot to be decided still between seeds 4 and 6.
And they've been very good at home, Carrick. We've been able to see that throughout the season. They're very, very good here in Trailblazer Stadium. One thing I failed to mention, Whitley Johns, back-to-back Player of the Week awards, as you mentioned in the open. A lot of awards coming in for Dixie State. Whitley Johns is one of those back-to-back Players of the Week.
Yeah, you mentioned that we had her on the show to start the season, and we may have to have her on again before the soccer season's over, because she's played herself right into the RMAC Player of the Year discussion, certainly first team All-RMAC discussion, and those will be coming in the coming weeks, as this is the final week of the regular season. Let's move to the volleyball court now as the Trailblazers continue their push to 20 wins in the regular season. At 18 right now, so 2 more, they'll get to 20. The volleyball team goes on the road last week. They were challenged right off the bat. CSU Pueblo kind of, for lack of a better way to say this, kind of punched them in the mouth, if you will, just a little bit, and took that first set on Friday. Dixie State would bounce back, but it took 5 sets to get the win over CSU Pueblo on Friday. It was a 3-2 win for the Trailblazers. They hit just 171 in that game, but that game was a wake-up call, because then they turned around the next night on Saturday and set a single match attack percentage record at New Mexico Highland, winning that match 3-1, but hitting an impressive 491 with 61 kills in that match.
Yeah, and Carrick, I've always been a proponent of, or a fan of, having these tough games late in the season. A lot of times I feel like some teams, they get off to a really good start, as we've seen the volleyball team get off to, and then they get to the end of the season and they maybe have a couple of cream puffs or a couple of people that are out of the playoff picture and maybe aren't giving it their all, and they may get complacent with what they're doing, or maybe not give it their all every single day. And we're not seeing that from the opponents that the Trailblazers are playing. CSU Pueblo gave them a very, very good game, and I think, in my opinion, that helps keep your team sharp and helps keep your team, kind of keep things into perspective to say, hey, we might be in a really good spot, but you blink your eyes, you lose 2 or 3 straight games, and now you're down in the standings in that RMAC tournament, and things can really change quickly. And so I really am glad that we're getting a lot of good competition late in the season. I think it's going to help keep our team strong and sharp and focused, and we saw that over the weekend. They're able to kind of play in those tough games and come out with victories consistently in those hard-fought games.
Haven't seen a whole lot of talk of this out of the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference yet. With some of the soccer scenarios, they've kind of come out and say this team has clinched a berth, this team has clinched a berth. Have not seen that yet from the conference side on the volleyball side, but Dixie State, with its win on Friday, did clinch a berth in the RMAC tournament. That's as far as you can go right now, because this Dixie State team, solo possession of second place at 13-2 in the RMAC, 1 game behind Colorado School of Mines at 14-1. And then after that, it gets a little crazy. The top 8 go, top 4 host at least a quarterfinal match. So Dixie State in second right now, but a very, very tough weekend, as Colorado Christian, the number 6 team right now, comes in at 10-5. They're in on Friday, and then Regis, 12-3. They are very tough historically in the RMAC. They're who Dixie State will have on Saturday. So you're in a scenario where you got to win at least one or both of these matches if you want to stay and host a quarterfinal matchup, and then still have a good chance, maybe should the top seed lose, of hosting the rest of the RMAC tournament. But they want to stay up as high as possible, and a loss or two can drop them down to 4th or 5th. There's just not much room between the 2 spot, even the top spot, all the way down to the 6th spot. So Dixie State will have to be on the money this weekend, and it's going to be a great weekend of volleyball in the Student Activity Center. You got to pack the Student Activity Center and be that home court advantage.
Yep, 4th seed and 6th seed coming in this weekend. 2 big games, Kerry, like you mentioned. But let's talk about football. The football team headed to Nebraska with a chance to clinch its second winning season in 3 years on Saturday against Shattern State University. Carrick, they were unable to do that in a tough, brutal, heartbreaking loss, a 30-18 loss to the hands of Shattern State. Really just a bizarre game, Carrick. I know you and I texted a little bit after the game, and both of us kind of had the same feeling. We just almost sick to our stomach of a game that really the Trailblazers had their opportunities. They had their chances to win, and would have got a good victory over a good Shattern State team. Were unable to do so despite outgaining Shattern State and have plenty of chances. They fall 30-18 in the loss.
Oh, and not just outgaining, but by a lot. I mean, Dixie State finishes with 631 yards of total offense. Shattern State was upwards of 470, I think, 473. Maybe, I think, was I thought I had it in my notes. I don't have it right here. But when you take into consideration that 97 of those yards for Shattern State came on a 97-yard run that sealed the game, Dixie State really had the Shattern State under 400 yards of total offense and gave themselves plenty of chances. Like you mentioned, 3 of 8 in the red zone. It's just not going to cut it. And Coach McClure, the players, they don't need anyone to tell them that. They know, they've addressed it already, and they have an opportunity to bounce back on Saturday against what we view as a rival in Colorado Mesa, and they view it the same way. But yeah, it's just 5 empty red zone possessions is disappointing. Even with all the adversities, a couple of missed field goals that they had a chance to punch it in with a minute and a half to go and just could not get into the end zone to win the game. Michael Sanders, though, on a personal note, on an individual note, I talked to him yesterday at practice. He already said, I'd trade what I did on Saturday for a win in a heartbeat. That's just the kind of player that he is. But he, 39 of 60 for 527 yards passing and a touchdown, the RMAC Offensive Player of the Week, and the 527 yards passing, single game record for this Dixie State team. The 60 attempts, a single game record, and the 39 completions ties a single game record. So Mike Sanders, got into the lineup late this year, but he's making up for lost time quickly. Disappointing, but I think Dixie State rights the ship, and I think they go and they kind of take out their frustrations on Colorado Mesa this week. Yeah, it'll be a good game. Who knows what will happen exactly, but I look for Dixie State to be much more crisp this weekend.
Yeah, to further your point, Carrick, I got a couple of stats here that just almost makes you more sick to your stomach. You mentioned the 3 and A in the red zone, 1 of 3 on field goal attempts, just 4 of 14 on third down conversions, 1 of 5 on fourth down conversions. They were plus 11 minutes in time of possession, 35 to 24 minutes. They only had 5 penalties for 40 yards, and like you mentioned, they outgained CSU. If you don't count that 97-yard play at the end of the game, which kind of was foreseeable, it was third and 3 or third and 10 on the 3-yard line. The Trailblazers had to force something with about 30 seconds left. They brought 8 or 9 guys, tried to force a fumble. Of course, one guy gets loose, 97 yards to the end zone. If you don't count that 97-yard touchdown, Trailblazers outgained them on the ground. Very, very tough loss for the Trailblazers, but a good chance to recover against a rival, CSU Mesa.
Yeah, Dixie State now 5-3 overall, 5-2 in RMAC play. A big matchup looming against Colorado Mesa this weekend. Women's golf, real quickly before we go to break, finishes 8th on Tuesday at the Fort Lewis Skyhawk Fall Intercollegiate. Kaylin Cardle and Caitlin Diebel tied at 32nd place, 10 over each. We got to take a break. When we come back, Tracking Trailblazers segment is back as former Dixie State volleyball player Mackenzie Murphy and current assistant coach will join us for Tracking Trailblazers. Take that break and come right back on Trailblazer Weekly.
For over a century, Dixie State University has been shaping the Trailblazers of tomorrow by providing a culture of active learning, active life. With a paradigm of real-world experience mixed with cutting-edge technologies and rich traditions, we provide one of the most affordable educations in the West, set against the most stunning backdrop on the planet.
Okay, Talking Point Live, what are we going to be doing the next few weeks?
Well, the next few weeks coming up before the election, we're going to be talking about drilling down a little bit on what this whole Russian meddling means, especially from an organic standpoint, and did that really have an effect on voting? There's some pretty compelling evidence out there that says it did. So join us now until right before the election.
Right.
Here.
And you know what it means, and when you say what does it means how we talk about it and how we investigate it, right? The critical thinking.
The critical analysis of that. So join Jennifer Kohler and myself, Eric Young, on Talking Point Live, coming to you on the CEC channel at 9:30, 12:30, and 4:30 daily.
Fast-paced family life in need of a slowdown?
Hello, I'm Dr. Spruce. Did you know all those green shapes on maps are parks and forests? It's true. Visit discovertheforest.org and plan to visit a park or forest near you, instead of just wondering what it would have been like.
While the word forest might make you think of distant lands from far, far away, please note parks and forests are closer than you think, which means things like beautiful scenery, fresh air, and family time are also closer than you think.
Trailblazer Weekly is presented by the Dixie State Campus Store, the official store for Trailblazer and Dixie State clothing, as well as cheap textbooks, discounted computers, and supplies for students. They're located in the second floor of the Gardner Center and are open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. during the week. Closed on Saturdays and Sundays? You can stop by any time because they'll be loaded with great Trailblazer swag all the time.
Trailblazer Weekly rolls on, and it's time for another edition of Tracking Trailblazers, where we check in with former student athletes or coaches who are still part of their respective games. This time we didn't have to look too far because we've got a former volleyball player on the current volleyball coaching staff. Today we welcome DSU volleyball great and current assistant coach Mackenzie Murphy to the show. Mackenzie, thanks so much for joining us on the show. Now, I know over the years we've called you by a couple different last names. It was Mackenzie Bird, then while you're still playing, it was Mackenzie Bird Murphy.
Only one marriage, though, I promise.
But no, yeah, we had the conversation on the phone the other day, said, hey, are we okay to just go with Murphy just for, being shorter, and you said you're okay with that.
Yes,
so,
of course.
Mackenzie Murphy joining us on the set today, and we're extremely grateful that you take the time to join us here on the show, and as we try to build this Tracking Trailblazers segment, and because really it's all about student athletes and their experience, and obviously you as a former student athlete, now a coach, perfect candidate to be on the show today, so we're excited to talk about, first of all, your time here at Dixie State. We'll just jump right into it. And this is a few years back. I know it is, but as you've already graduated and you're coaching now, but we'd like to ask people, why Dixie State? What was it about the school? Because now you're trying to pitch that same thing to, student athletes to come here and to play here. But what was it about Dixie State? Obviously, you're from St. George. So it was close to home. That was probably part of it. But what was it about Dixie State that made you want to sign on the dotted line and play volleyball here?
Well, my senior year of high school, junior and senior year, I kind of had a few schools I was considering, Dixie actually not one of them. And then I had some big things happen in my life my senior year, and I was actually being coached by the head coach of the volleyball team at the time, Doris Pratt. And so kind of last minute I was like, hey, can I come try out to come play at Dixie? And she was like, yes, we'd love to have you come try out. So I showed up, obviously made the team, and signed my life away to Dixie State, and it just seriously worked out, and it ended up being the best 4 years of my life.
And the rest is history.
Really,
Lots of great moments here. This is probably a hard one. Was there a moment playing here at Dixie State in that 4 years that was kind of the most special, or one that you kind of always go back to? And if so, what would that be?
Yeah, so I mean, my 4 years here were kind of a roller coaster, but luckily kind of at an incline. My freshman year was definitely a building year for the program. I mean, we finished bottom of the conference, only winning a few games. Having 5 freshmen on the court basically at a time is never a good situation to be in, but it was a learning curve for us. And then my sophomore year, we made it into the, Pac West tournament totally by surprise, and then we just got better from there. I would say probably the highlight of my career playing here would be my senior year, winning the conference. I mean, to be able to get a ring in college, to win the conference, finding out at an airport of all places, because it came down to two teams playing each other, and if one lost, then we won it, and they ended up losing. So we were all just freaking out in the airport. I mean, I'm sure everyone was annoyed with us, just mosh pitting basically right in the middle of the airport. But I think of that moment all the time, and it was the best feeling ever.
Of course, you mentioned that Pac-West Championship, and that leads right into what I want to ask next. You had the Pac-West Championship your senior year, the junior year, the Sweet 16 run where you go up and you beat Northwest Nazarene on their court, and just how special that was. You have all these special moments with these special teams. How often do you still keep in touch with the teammates from those 2 years?
Yeah.
Your 4 years, but those 2 years specifically.
Yeah, so I mean, social media is so awesome because I feel bad. I'm not the best at like reaching out to people, phone calls, text messages, but I get to keep up with a lot of the girls on Instagram and Facebook and things like that. And it just is so fun to see kind of where they've gone with everything. Quite a few of them are having kids and they have gotten married, and just, it's just crazy. After volleyball, you just are like, now what do I do? And you move on with your life, and all the girls seem to be doing good, and some of them are coaching, some of them are moving around, going to school still. And so I definitely am grateful for, Instagram and things like that, because those girls, we got so close, going through all those things together and winning a championship together. So it's been fun to kind of see where we've all gone.
So now we've talked about your playing career. Obviously now you're an assistant coach with the program. Tell us a little bit about how that kind of all came about, and did you approach Coach Felder? Did she approach you? How did that kind of all come about?
Yeah, so I mean, right off the gate, I was a GA, which was fun, but it definitely is a hard transition to make from being on the court, kind of being in the spotlight, and then to being on the sideline. So I did that. And then I took a year off because I had a child. And then after, Robin just kind of approached me and was like, hey, we'd love to have you come assist for us. Just come help us out. We want you back a part of the program. And I, of course, was on board with that because I love Robin to death, and I love Dixie State. And so I just jumped right on board.
Talk a little bit about, I'm always interested in practice and kind of the preparation aspect. I ask all of our guests about practice. Tell me a little bit about the differences between maybe the preparation and the practices, is maybe from your perspective as a player to now as you're a coach. Is there a certain difference that you notice as far as practice or preparation that you've noticed?
I mean, I always took it for granted being a player, but the coaches just put in so much work and thought into every practice, every match. I mean, the amount of scouting and film that we watch to prepare these girls for every match, and how we specify each practice to our upcoming opponents, it really is amazing, and Robin does an awesome job at that. And I think as a player, I just kind of like went through the motions, and I mean, I did every drill, but just the thought behind everything and how it just prepared us. I mean, it really is cool to see and cool to be a part of, to now help the girls in that way.
How does being a former student athlete help you as a coach? And not just a former student athlete, but a former student athlete who played for the current head coach. How does that help your relationship with the current players, and being able to share with them, hey, I understand what you're going through because I went through the same thing?
Totally. I mean, as a player, there are practices that you just come out of and you're like, wow, like that was a really good practice, or I really learned a lot from that, or I got better. And I think as a coach, I remember those practices, and I kind of will suggest drills here and there that were some of my favorites that I felt like were challenging, and not only, made me a better volleyball player, but got my mind strong, because volleyball is a very mental sport. It's a mental game. And so I think I've been able to apply that to the girls, and just making suggestions. And I mean, there's still a handful of girls on the team who I did play with my senior year. They were freshmen at the time, and so I think it's kind of hard to coach them in the sense, because they're like, oh, I played with you, and I feel a little awkward, but at the same time, they know that I can kind of back up what I'm saying or not. But hopefully I back up what I'm saying.
What's one thing that you learned while you were, I want to say while you were at Dixie State, but you were there and you're still here. But like we were saying during the break, I'm the same way. I got my degree here, and here I am. The apple has not fallen far from the tree. But what's one thing you learned as a player at Dixie State that's really helped you share and coach your current student athletes?
Well, I really have gained an awesome relationship with the head coach. I mean, Robin and I have known each other for 10 years. She coached me one of my first few years of club and has taught me basically everything I know about volleyball. And so just being able to be coached by her I mean, she's one of the best coaches, and I've learned a lot, and I think she's made me a better coach, and I hope to, you know, follow in her footsteps someday and be as great as she is. But yeah, I think like just the mental toughness and the grit that you get as a player, you take right into coaching. And I'm on the sidelines and I'm just like, come on, let's go. I just get so like hyped up and I just want to be on the court with them. But obviously my time has passed. But yeah, I think that you just kind of bring that same fire and getting to coach with who I was coached by. It really is cool. It's like I've come full circle, I guess.
This team, obviously, you know, this year's team, obviously very talented. We've discussed them, you know, often on the team, often on the show. You know, they're a great blocking team. You know, we've theorized that maybe there's something in the water, or I don't know what it is, but they're just really good in that particular. I mean, they're good all around, but that particular aspect of the game, they're very tremendous. How have you been able to kind of help this year's team to be better in that specific aspect of blocking?
Yeah, so I was a middle blocker, so I blocked all the time, you know, drilling it, repping it out in practice, and we still do that. I mean, the first probably hour to hour and a half of practice, we are just doing drills, and, you know, I'll take the middles and right sides, who are our main blocking girls, and we'll be off on the other net just repping that out, just going through the motions. I mean, hundreds of reps just until, you know, we get it right and things start to click, and the girls have just obviously been super receptive to that, and it shows with our stats and with our blocking. And we have Lauren Gamble, who's just an absolute beast. That's just the best word to describe her. I mean, she jumps so well, she's so tall, she gets over the net, and she just understands blocking so well. So she's just definitely a natural at it.
Speaking of this team, look back, you know, to your senior and junior year when you won the Pac West, and then obviously went to the Sweet 16. Are there any similarities between those teams that you played on when you won the Pac West to this year's team? Is there anything that you can point to say, man, this part, or they remind us a lot of this team? Are there any similarities like that exist?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think this team this year, they have more grit than teams have in the past. I think that my last couple of years playing, we just were so gritty and we are feisty and competitive, and I definitely see that in this team. I think this team is one of the most talented teams that they've ever had. I mean, even considering to when I played, they just have so much talent, and they have the grit and the feistiness that needs to go along with that. And they're doing so well in the conference right now, and I can honestly say I'm not surprised at all. I mean, from the first couple of weeks of practice, you could just tell that these girls, they meshed really well, they were very gifted with volleyball, and that they were going to do really well in the conference, and they have not disappointed one bit.
You mentioned the conference, and the RMAC obviously is a new conference to Dixie State volleyball this year. We were in the Pac West when you played, so it was unfamiliar territory for you too, but the team has played so well this year. How much of a we want to go out and show these conference who we are factor was there at the start of this year? I mean, because you've kind of taken the conference by storm. The region rankings just came out. I don't know how I missed that in the first segment. Number 5 in the region rankings right now, and you've taken the conference by storm. So how much of a factor was that going into the year?
Oh yeah, I mean, it was a huge factor to just come in with kind of a blank slate, being the new kids on the block, and I think we definitely just wanted to come out and prove ourselves and show that we were definitely a force in this new conference. I mean, we were a force in the Pac West. We knew the RMAC was definitely a more competitive conference for us, but we definitely just weren't going to take the back seat in any match, and we weren't going to be the underdogs. We were just going to come out and prove ourselves, and we definitely have done that.
I'll tell you, at the end of each trip, I don't know, I'm not sure who runs the team Facebook page, but there's kind of like a recap of each trip you go on. It just seems like this team is always having fun, working hard, but having fun. How much is that emphasized that, hey, volleyball is hard work, but it's supposed to be fun. If you can't have fun, then why you play it? It just seems like this team has fun. Is that an emphasis, and how much has that helped this team to play well?
Yeah, I think as coaches, and Robin especially, she understands that if the girls bond and have chemistry off the court, it transfers and translates on the court. So I know that when they travel, she'll find activities for them to do, like going bowling or going to a nature museum type place.
Like Mount Rushmore.
Exactly. How about Mount Rushmore? Exactly.
Really?
So she definitely tries to get the girls bonded and to come together, because like I said before, if the chemistry off the court definitely translates, and so the girls just if they have a lot of fun and are close off the court, it shows with their chemistry on the court.
Inside joke, by the way, that we'll let you in on. The show immediately after the trip that your team had to South Dakota, we had, and maybe you've heard about this, I think it was Lauren Gamble on the show, wasn't it? And I was trying to ask her what specific monument they had gone to, and I couldn't remember it.
Couldn't remember the name of Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore.
Oh. He's like, what's the monument there in South Dakota?
So
the one
we'll just
with the
say that you're
faces
being
on it?
sarcastic.
Any time that these guys, everyone in here gets an opportunity to give me a hard time about that, they do. But we've run out of time here on the segment. We appreciate you coming by, and I'm glad that we had a former Trailblazer, Dixie State player that's still on the coaching staff just right here, because we could have you here in studio. It's so much better than just having to get you on the phone or wherever. So we appreciate you stopping by, and this, from what I can see, this volleyball team is far from done. A couple of games left in the regular season, our MAC tournament, and into postseason play. It's going to be a fun run, and hopefully we can keep this thing going. So thanks for stopping by, and it's been fun to get to know you a little bit better and to have some fun.
Yep, thanks so much.
Coach.
We got to take another break. When we come back, men's soccer senior midfielder Dominic D'Amato will join us as the Trailblazers get set to wrap up the 2018 regular season. We're going to take the break. Come right back on Trailblazer Weekly.
Radio Dixie 91.3. We don't play that. Nope, not that. A big fat no there. That's what we play. And stuff like that. On St. George's only alternative, Radio Dixie 91.3. Oh, and from 9 till midnight, we play this. I need a one dance. And this. Radio Dixie 91.3 FM.
I take the road less traveled, run free, unwind, unravel, someplace outside with lots to do. Green trees, red rocks, and don't forget that blue sky. The sunshine shining, sunshine pouring on me. Think I might just stay a while. Say hooray all day because the sun is gonna shine on me. Sun is gonna shine on me. Sun's gonna shine on me.
Responsible ourselves for our minds.
True, right? But that's
we can't
that's
palm
the
it
issue.
off on being unwitting dupes and just say, oh well, it doesn't count because I got played.
Well, we have some unwitting dupes, Jennifer.
We do, but you can't say because we got played by the Russians that we have to redo the election.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
For over a century, Dixie State University has been shaping the Trailblazers of tomorrow by providing a culture of active learning, active life. With a paradigm of real-world experience mixed with cutting-edge technologies and rich traditions, we provide one of the most affordable educations in the West, set against the most stunning backdrop on the planet.
Today is the beginning of a bright new future for this country.
I won't live a life on my knees.
The voters are coming.
Trailblazer Weekly is the official show of Dixie State Athletics. You can keep up with all the Trailblazer athletic action with pictures, stats, and game recaps at dixiestateathletics.com. While you're at it, don't forget you can follow our show on Twitter as well with @DSUBlazerWeekly.
Welcome back to Trailblazer Weekly, live from the CEC TV studios in the Jennings Communication Building. The men's soccer team is riding its longest win streak of the season, And here to help us break it all down is senior midfielder Dominic D'Amato. Dominic, thank you so much for joining us on today's show.
Nice.
I know we said earlier just before we came back on that you'd sprinted up here. I know that's not true because unless maybe it is true, I guess, right?
I mean, it was a fast-paced job.
I mean, they literally finished practice.
Yeah, 3 o'clock is
That's why we had to ramble a little bit
practice.
longer in the first segment to give Dominic some extra time to get up here.
Got plenty of time to get up here.
But he's certainly not breathing hard like I would be.
Sorry, exactly. Exactly. So Dominic, you guys have been, kind of a rough season, but 3-game winning streak as of late. You guys are really playing some good soccer to finish the season. Talk to me a little bit about what's been the difference between kind of the struggles you had earlier in the year to where you've now won 3 games in a row.
I think the biggest thing was at the beginning of the year we were struggling to kind of find our identity, find what works, new conference, different style of play in there, and I think recently we've kind of put it together to where it's kind of clicking now. Everybody's on that same page, and it's showing with the games we're putting out. So,
you had a goal and an assist in the 2 victories over the weekend. Obviously, it's always fun to score, but it's always, also more important to get the assist to someone who can score. As a midfielder, is there one that you prefer more than the other? Do you like to score more than the other, or do you like to, maybe get that assist? Which one do you prefer more?
Well, coming in as a freshman, my goal was to be the assist leader. I like giving the assists more. I mean, Moy's on the team, so I know. But if he's gonna beat me out, then that's one person I would want. But definitely, I would say I'm more of an assist guy, rather see someone else score.
Hey, you're only 3 assists away from him right now on that list. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
So you just got to tell everybody, hey, I need all the assists this weekend, all right? So let me do all the passing.
Exactly.
No, but 4 years have flown by for you, I'm sure. I mean, we're kind of, I'm a senior too, in the same term of you came in on my first year of being full-time here at Dixie State. So you've been here every year. I've been able to watch you each year. I mean, I was probably on the spot, hard to think about this, but what's one of the biggest things that you've learned here in your time in the Trailblazer uniform?
Well, it's been a fun ride, but I would say it's been hard. So the hard lessons in life. Freshman year was a lot of defending. Sophomore year, we won. Junior year, we started off strong, kind of had to find our place again, and this year has been a struggle, but it's been hard, and I can say each year we figure it out and we don't give up. So I would say that's the biggest thing, is kind of just pushing through those hard times and don't quit when it gets rough. Keep going.
And you mentioned it. I mean, that's life right there. So you come in and you get some great experience for, because obviously, as much as we want to believe it, the sport ends eventually, and there's other things after it. But we're not talking about right now. We've got a couple games left.
Yeah.
But as I read through your player bio online here, there's that question on the player bio form that you answer every year. Why Dixie State? Why did you want to come here? One of the things that you had said is that you accepted the challenge to want to come and help change the program. Yeah. And I would say over the last 4 years, I mean, mission accomplished. So congratulations on that. You've been able to be part of that. What are some of your favorite memories on the field here at Dixie State as you've been able to help change that culture and accomplish that goal of helping build a winning culture and a winning tradition here at Dixie State?
I would have to say, of course, the 2016 Pac West Championship on our field in front of our fans, beating Concordia Irvine. That was special, especially if I got a goal in that game as well. So that was an experience I'll never forget. But I would say that one was definitely something that stood out, especially with all the guys. The struggles we went through that season, starting off 0-3, the coaching problem and stuff like that. I would say that was definitely a special year. So
certainly was a special team that you guys just kind of said, hey, we got to be together as players, and you went and got the job done.
Yeah.
Talking with Dominic D'Amato, men's soccer senior midfielder. Wanted to ask you, obviously we mentioned earlier on the show, a lot of young guys on this team, just 4 seniors on the team this year. Obviously you're one of them. How have you kind of been, have you taken kind of a leadership role? How have you kind of been able to do that and kind of helping these, obviously you're a great player and you're going to go down as one of the legends of Dixie State football, or of soccer, sorry.
You can say football.
Football, we're talking soccer here, so we're talking football, right? Same thing. How have you kind of been taking that leadership role as far as going with the underclassmen?
Well, it kind of was said best by Kobe Bryant. It was, once you get to a certain level, it's not about you anymore. It's about the players you make around you better. So I've taken that and kind of applied it to my game to where it's not about me anymore. It's not my stats. It's what I can do for the team and, any way I can help them, which is, telling them what I see, my thoughts on it, and letting them take it, kind of apply their own style to it, and hopefully beats me out of the water, what my ideas were. That's the goal.
Never a bad idea to take a quote or motivation from Kobe Bryant.
Yeah,
certainly. Obviously one of the best. Dominic, like you mentioned, I loved what you said earlier about how throughout your career you've learned how to kind of deal with adversity, and obviously this season has had its tough times. But talk a little bit about what makes this team unique. Obviously you're at a point in the season where you're beginning to turn things around. Near the end of the year, what makes this team special or unique, maybe different from other teams you've had here at Dixie State?
I would say the most unique thing about us is, honestly, this is probably my roughest season, but box to box, we've been playing, the best soccer I've been a part of, like passing, movement, interchange, finding space, just the guys on the team have, that creativity that only a few would have a few years ago, and I would say that's the most unique thing is the creativity. But games are won in boxes, and we started to figure that out. But a bunch of small guys out there.
Couple of games left this weekend, and obviously the big one Thursday.
Yeah.
It's senior day. Normally it is your last home game, and the women have one more home game, so it works out great. But with that band competition that they host here, the women will play their last game on the Dixie High School field. So it works out great that literally your last home game here is on this field at Dixie State University, and what a better way than to go out playing the in-state rival in Westminster. And what does that mean to the team to be able to have a former coach, former an in-state, and you're from Las Vegas, right? So you're not from Utah, but you're close enough. You know people up there, I'm sure. Friends that have gone to play at Westminster or whatever. Just talk about that game and how exciting it is. And senior day is finally here. I'm sure that when you're a freshman, that day seems like it's forever and a day away, and all of a sudden senior day is here tomorrow.
Yeah, it's definitely with Josh Pittman coming back into town, we want to not let him get a win against his old school, especially on our home field. But a lot of the older guys, especially I think we have 6 seniors going off tomorrow. We want to win our last game. We want to go off on that good note, and all the young guys want to make sure we go off on that young note as well. On that good note, sorry. So beating Westminster, claiming the first win out of this in-state rivalry will be something special that we hope to get tomorrow. So,
senior day on Thursday. That's tomorrow. I keep saying Thursday like it's in a couple of days, but that's tomorrow, already. We're chatting with men's soccer senior midfielder Dominic D'Amato here on Trailblazer Weekly. That's something I'm always bad at reminding the radio listeners who we're chatting with, and forget we're at the triple cast going on here. But then it's on the road, one more game, and then the regular season wraps up. Talk about what it's been like on those road trips. It seems like you guys have been on the road all season long, is what it feels like. Never more than just a couple of games at home. But it's your senior year. You're used to the Pac West. Now you're in the RMAC. How has that been this year to kind of adjust, and your senior year to get to see some new places? And like you said, it's been a new style of soccer, but how has that kind of transition? That's one more thing that you've been able to help this program do and transition to. How has that been this year in the RMAC?
It's been great. I wish we would have, performed better in the games we needed to. But traveling-wise, it's more fun to go to different places, see different areas, to where in the Pac West you would just go to one place, stay there, and then come back home. So a little less stressful, but bus rides are always fun with the guys, and putting on movies and all that fun stuff. So it's been fun, and I think we'll be good next year with getting over that little transition phase. So.
Got a few minutes left here. Wanted to get you a few rapid fire questions before we let you go. So you got to let us know favorite soccer club. Who is it? Who is it?
Arsenal FC.
Arsenal FC.
Yep.
All right.
I like the use of the word club too.
Yeah.
Team. I wrote team on the script.
Right.
Good
So
job.
I know my
clubs.
I know my soccer lingo. So all right. I kind of maybe I don't know who you're going to say here, but I feel like maybe I have a guess. But favorite player. Who is it?
Kyle Beckerman.
No, not Kyle Beckerman. Well, out of Messi and Ronaldo, those two, it's Messi, but someone that's kind of not so much in the spotlight, I would have to say, is Kevin De Bruyne or David Silva. Those two are magicians, man, with the ball. It's crazy what they can do.
I would have guessed Ronaldo, so I was.
Nope.
So, all right. Is there a favorite stadium that you've seen on TV? That you've
even been in,
perhaps that you've seen maybe a game in. Favorite stadium?
Well, I would love to. I've never been over in Europe stadiums. I've been to the LA Galaxy Stadium, the Rio Tinto, but I would say the best one I've seen is probably Wembley. It's in England. Yeah.
That's where they play the football games when they go over there.
Yeah.
That's correct, right?
Yep.
They play the American football games over there. All right.
This is the one I'm looking
last
for.
one. This is one
I want to know this.
We were
one.
excited from this one when we wrote it on the script. So, FIFA champion. Who is it on the team? Who is the best at FIFA?
And don't tell me you don't play it.
No, we definitely play it. I would say one who kind of everybody beats everybody, but the one who kind of like is on top, I would have to say, is Moises. That's me being generous, but
I thought maybe you were going to say, like, you know,
I mean, I'm
surprise
definitely
us
top
and say
3.
Coach Broadhead, you know?
No.
Does he ever play with you?
No, he doesn't. Brad, maybe, but
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, good times, good times. Thanks. Just want to thank you for stopping by and being part of the show with us today. We've run out of time here on the segment. I think eventually we might have to start pushing this thing to 2 hours. It's only a weekly show.
Yeah.
It goes so fast, and we appreciate you stopping by. And just first of all, just congratulations on a heck of a career here at Dixie State. And like I said, it's make me look and say, man, I've been here full time for, this is my 4th year here now, and here we go.
So tomorrow's your night too.
What's that?
Tomorr's your night as well.
Yeah, tomorrow's my night as well. I expect to be honored at Senior Day. But we'll be at Senior Day, and I'll be there, and we'll be excited, and hopefully be cheering you guys on to a win.
Awesome. Yeah, hopefully we can get those 3 points for sure. Appreciate it, guys.
Another big thank you to men's soccer senior Dominic D'Amato for joining us on the show today. We got to take our final timeout. When we come back, we will take a quick weekend preview and let you know the big matchups in Dixie State athletics this weekend. Final timeout, and back to put a bow on the show here on Trailblazer Weekly.
Where do you find the titans of classical music in St. George? Classical music on Radio St. George, 100.3 FM. Where do you find the legends of jazz? Evenings on Radio St. George, 100.3 FM.
Do you think people like John McCain and other people would just sit there quietly on the sides, and that many Republican activists would refrain from registering their disapproval in the peanut gallery?
Some might argue that Republican activist is an oxymoron.
Oh, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of activism.
Right.
But do you see what I'm saying? If you just flip it right over on its head.
I would like to flip it on its head, and in fact, I'm already doing that because my own position is free speech is free speech. Okay, and I'm kind of advocating for something that I'm really not supporting in this respect. As far as protesting or not protesting and being able to recognize your audience, what we need on either side, I don't care where you're coming from, is the ability to recognize the audience.
There is a place where young and old make connections, where kids feel like grown-ups, and grown-ups feel like kids. There is a place where beauty arises in contrast, where wonder is universal, and laughter second nature. There is a place where friends find a future, families find each other, and feelings find their home. There is a place.
The Dixie State Stretch Internet Portal and the RMAC Network is your home for all Trailblazer athletics live streaming. Don't miss a second of the action. You can watch DSU games home and away at portal.stretchinternet.com/Dixie State. That's portal.stretchinternet.com/Dixie State.
And there is Carrick Segmiller's Mount Rushmore inside joke that we have at the volleyball team there at Mount Rushmore. It's a joke that's going to live on all year, Carrick, regardless of how much we try to get away from it. But
I'll take one for the team. We got you on the Dodgers hat the other week, so I'll take one for the team.
Fair
it's all
enough,
good.
Fair enough. But another show is almost in the books, and you know what that means. It's time to put a bow on today's show with a look ahead for a weekend preview, starting with volleyball. The Trailblazers will host Colorado Christian on Friday, and then Regis on Saturday. Carrick, we mentioned two very important games as far as postseason standings and rankings going into the weekend. DSU is in second place right now. Regis and Colorado Christian in fourth place and sixth place respectively. I'm have those switch actually. Fourth place for Regis, sixth place for Colorado Christian. But two very good games, opponents coming in this weekend.
Yeah, just everything from one, we talked about earlier, from 1 through 6, everything's so close. Colorado School of Mines 14-1, Dixie State's 13-2, and if Dixie State wins these two games and you know something catastrophic happens with Colorado School of Mines and they lose a couple games, I mean it's probably not going to happen, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities for Dixie State to get into first place even. But the two teams that they play, more importantly, are just right at nipping at their heels, and so Dixie State can't afford to slip up this weekend if they want to host one of those quarterfinal matchups at least in the RMAC tournament, play one of those games in the comfy confines of home before then heading out for the final two matchups. So an opportunity also to cement this regular season as one of the best in the D2 era and try to get to 20 wins. And this volleyball team has been spectacular, and hopefully that can continue this weekend. Colorado Christian on Friday night at 6, and then into the next day, Regis on Saturday at 4. Let's move on to soccer. Quick soccer roundup. The men's and women's soccer teams each have senior day tomorrow, Thursday, before the men head back out onto the road for Saturday's finale. So the men will have senior day tomorrow. They'll take on Westminster on Thursday. This is going to throw me off because I've been having trouble getting that Sunday game down all year, and now they're playing Thursday, Saturday this week, so it's throwing me off. So the men will have Westminster on Thursday. That's senior day tomorrow, and then they'll be at Colorado Christian on Saturday. Again, they're currently 8th in the RMAC standings, likely to not get into the RMAC tournament, but you can get a couple of wins and avoid a losing season with those two wins. The women's soccer team will host Colorado Mesa on Thursday. They'll have that as their senior day game because when they play Western Colorado here in St. George on Saturday, due to the band competition here at Dixie State University, that game will be played at Dixie High School. Like the volleyball RMAC standings, 4 through 6, only separated by 3 points. Dixie State could move up and host an RMAC quarterfinal game. We'll have to see what happens after this weekend. That's your soccer roundup as time is running out on our weekend preview. But Drayson, let's hit football real quick. What's football got going on this weekend?
Yeah, they will wrap up their 2-game road trip at Colorado Mesa on Saturday in Grand Junction, and it's a good opportunity for the football team to just move past that kind of ugly loss last week against Chatham State. If they win this game, like we mentioned in last week's show, they will clinch a winning season with a victory in Grand Junction. Carrick, you know, it's going to be always a rowdy environment in Grand Junction. It's always a tough place to play, but it is a game of victory that you could and certainly should go win. I'm looking forward to that. Obviously, a rivalry game with Colorado Mesa, and this is you know, goes without saying. You need to win this game in order to get to 7 or 8 wins and kind of salvage the season after a tough loss last week to Chatham.
These two teams have been playing each other when Dixie State was Dixie College and Colorado Mesa was Mesa State College, junior college days, into the D2 era, and now they're in the same conference. This is a rivalry game. And at the game 2 years ago, I mean, the student section was they were the only places in the conference, and I think they had to have special permission to do it. The student section at Colorado Mesa is behind the opposing bench. And I was there a couple years ago, and Dixie State won that game. The student section was letting them have it. wouldn't expect anything less this week as well. Huge game in terms of Dixie State trying to get to 7 or to 8 wins. We'll have all those results for you on DixieStateAthletics.com throughout the weekend, so check it out. Our time is gone. Another edition of Trailblazer Weekly in the books. Remember, you can watch the show anytime on demand at youtube.com/Dixie State Athletics. For Drayson Ball and for the entire CEC TV and Radio Dixie 91.3 FM crew, I'm Carrick Sagmeller. We'll see you next week. Go Trailblazers.